This was like a little bit after 2008. So I went out and just started making phone calls. This lady had a house that was vacant and she was living out of state. The trees were growing up, grass wasn't cut. So I made her an offer and I told her we can close in 30 days or less. Yeah. She said, okay. In about 2 weeks time, did all the paperwork. We closed on it. The seller got their check. The buyer got his property and I got my check. And oh my gosh, it felt so good.
How much was that first check for?
That first one was for $10,000.
I'm Keith.
And I'm D, and this is the Defiant Life Podcast, where we defy the laws of mediocrity.
There it is.
Hey, we in there, man.
Hey.
With a new logo and everything.
New logo. Hey, look at that.
Looking good. So let's talk about this logo real quick.
All right.
So we got a gorilla in here. What does the gorilla represent to you?
I don't really know. I think it just represents the idea that you are like living life on your own terms, I think. Yeah.
Yes. So that kind of speaks to our first episode where we said becoming an entrepreneur of your life, right? Yeah. So to me, a gorilla represents strength, freedom, a little bit wild, and just like you said, on your own terms. They're intelligent animals as well. Yeah. And, I think that's all the stuff that we want to represent with and stuff that we kind of want to put out there with the Defiant Life brand, right?
Yeah.
So if that's something you aspire to be, then,
click the link below.
Right. Cool. All right. Well, today I want to talk a little bit about my journey into real estate, how I got into real estate, and just the whole etymology of who I am.
Yeah, I kind of want to hear your story. I know a little bit of it, but I want to get some more like details, I guess. How did you get started? What I guess first thing is, what got you interested in real estate?
So I think I fall into the same category that a lot of people do, in that I am pretty decent at a lot of things. Yeah. Right.
Jack of all trades.
Yep. Master of none. So master of my own.
Do you know the rest of that slogan? I don't know if it's real or not, but I've heard the rest of that is, so it's Jack of all trades, master of none, still better than a master of one or something like that.
Huh.
I don't know if that's right.
You know what? We're going to have to unpack that because I don't really agree with that.
We'll have to look that up later. That's for another podcast.
Okay. All right. Y'all stay locked. Hey, that's what in the industry, that's what we like to call a teaser.
There you
right?
go.
So stay strapped in. So, so I've had a lot of different types of jobs. I was a caddy one time. Favorite job in the world.
There you go. Caddy, that was fun.
So much fun. Greatest office in the world. TPC Sawgrass.
I mean, Sea Island's all right, too. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's not too shabby. Nothing to sneeze at. I was a full-time neuromuscular therapist or massage therapist. Had my own business with that. Had some ups and downs, a lot of downs, a lot of ups, trying to become an entrepreneur with that. And that was a struggle, not really knowing what I was doing with that. Right. Having skill set, but not having the business acumen to run a business. Yeah. I also was in the construction world for long. I used to remodel houses, carpentry, things like that. So with that, I can now remodel your shower, your bathroom, your kitchen.
It might take 5 years.
Yeah, but it's gonna get done. Maybe
one more day. What is it? Just a few more days, couple more days construction.
That's a couple more days.
The guy on Facebook, he has a bunch of shorts about that, like little stuff here and there. They just leave it. Just need a couple more days.
Listen, the devil is in the details, right? Yeah. So the last 20% takes 80% of the time to do.
There you go.
Right.
That's true.
So some other things that I've done. I was in full-time ministry also. I was a man of the cloth at one point.
I'm also an ordained minister
myself. That's right. So. I forgot about that. Okay. Have you ever constructed a marriage before?
Yeah.
Yeah? You've done ceremonies?
I did one.
Dang.
That's why I got ordained, so I could do that. In Georgia, you have to be ordained to officiate a wedding. So.
And also in Georgia, you don't have to get married to be married. It's like, they used to have common law. I don't know if that's still a thing.
They don't have that anymore.
Okay.
No. Although I will say I have an uncle who is at the marriage limit in Georgia. So.
What does that mean? Like he's been what? Explain that.
He's been married 5 times, and I think 5 or 6. And after that, I don't think you can. You have to go somewhere else to get married.
So think about. So think about how ridiculous that is. So, okay. So check this out. Think about we off topic for real. So he met this new girl, right?
Yeah.
and he has no problems talking to her, committing, doing stuff with her, knowing that he can't get married.
Yeah.
Like, baby, it's not me. It's the law. It's against the law. I've never heard of
prison.
Right, yeah. I would if I could, That reminds me of a Key and Peele skit. Anyway, so Man of the Cloth, that's pretty funny. I've done all kinds of things. I'm sure there's some other things in there that I'm missing that I can't really think about right now. But long story short, had a lot of jobs, a lot of things that I was decent at, a lot of things and some things that I actually enjoyed, right? And was frustrated with doing remodeling. It was very labor intensive. And the pay wasn't that great, working by the hour, starting to get into a little bit more of getting some jobs and building a team and getting paid percentages of the job. But I just knew that I wasn't in love with that work.
Right.
When I had to do it for a living. I enjoy doing those things. I enjoy working with my hands. And now I teach my kids some of those same skills and something they can hold for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
But knew that wasn't the lot for me, right? I believe, and I had to learn that and it's funny when you're young, you think you know it all, you think you're grown. When I was 21, I was like, I'm grown. When I was 25, especially when I turned 30, I was like, okay, I'm a wise sage now. My frontal lobe has fully been developed. I can make common sense decisions. I'm a man, right?
Yeah.
And you so young, you still a baby at 30. I was still wet behind the ears.
Yeah.
So the more I lived and the more I allowed myself to listen, the more I learned that I didn't know nothing, right? So I started asking people and talking to people and looking at what I like to do and looking at different things in my life. And I learned that I really show my salt with communication. People listen to me when I talk. I love to teach when I know something. I love to help people go from A to B in their understanding because that brings peace of mind. I love being harmonious and just bringing people and things together, bringing clarity to situations.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's probably your greatest talent for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, man. That's duly noted. So with that kind of got me in the flow of thinking differently. Like, okay, I'm decent with my hands. I play the guitar, I do massage, I can build stuff. That's cool, but it's slow money, right? I have to be here to make this money, and it's just not. That's not what it is. This ain't it. So you and my buddy Mike were both already in real estate.
Yeah.
Mike was doing wholesaling in South Florida. You were getting into multifamily real estate.
Yep.
So Mike came up to me first and said, "Hey man, I'm doing this thing and I'm wholesaling houses." I was like, "That sounds crazy. Would you buying a whole bunch of houses and selling them for cheap?" I didn't know what the term meant at all.
Yeah.
And he started explaining the process to me. I said, "Man, that sounds illegal." Like you buying the house but not buying the house and selling it without buying it. And I was like, "What?" Yeah. So he was saying it, and he was like, "Yeah, man, I'm making crazy money doing it." And I was like, "I don't understand that. You don't have $300,000.
Yeah.
I know you. You're from around the way, right?" So he was showing me that he was making this money. So I started looking into it a little bit and saw that there was some legitimacy to it. And what I didn't realize was that I just didn't understand the world of real estate at all. I didn't understand the rules of the game, the rules of engagement, what it took to buy a house, how people were acquiring houses. Like, I had no idea. I thought that when you see a house on the street that somebody either got a loan for $300,000 or they paid cash for it, and that was it.
Right.
Right. I had no idea that there was any other variables out there. The same with you. When you started talking to me about you buying 6 trailer parks, buying pretty much the whole city, just about. You probably own the most real estate in the city, right?
I don't know. We were close. We were big fish in a small pond, so maybe.
Yeah, still a big fish though.
Well, not relative to big fish.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. Well, so and even with that, I was like, man, this is amazing. Like, and actually owning real estate wasn't something that even crossed my mind because there was not a common conversation. Those practices, those methodologies, that type of thing was not a common conversation or people that I encountered on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Like I had family members that owned a house, but they didn't own assets. Their houses weren't assets. They were still liabilities. So with that, all that to say, with that being said, my mind had started to open up to the world of real estate. So the first thing I noticed about you when you got into it, because you were a serial entrepreneur, you had always started starting your own businesses. But when it came to this real estate thing, the first thing I noticed that you had that was different that I definitely did not have was a mindset change. When you would see a house, we would drive by a house, or you'd be looking at something online, like, okay, they want $3.1 million for this property. You never said, I can't afford that. You would start thinking like, okay, how can I afford this? Okay, I need 20% down, or I can raise this, or I can collateral that. And it blew my mind, right? And my buddy Mike was the same way. There was never, so the first thing the first obstacle I knew I had to overcome, or the first skill set I knew I had to acquire was changing my mindset.
Yeah.
Right.
What did that look like for you when you first started thinking that way?
So I couldn't do it on my own. I couldn't will my way to it. Right. I had to go to an outside source. So that book that you recommended to me was Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad. I drank that book like I had been dehydrated my whole life. I couldn't get enough of it.
Yeah.
And hearing him talk about these things was a revelation. It quenched my thirst, and it just opened my eyes to so many different things. So reading that book and let myself get through it and allow myself to be changed to look at it a way differently and look at it in a way that successful people look at it, you know?
Yeah.
It wasn't a struggle for me to change my mindset.
Right.
You know, once I knew that there were other possibilities, once I knew that this is the first thing that needed to happen in order for me to even think about going into another realm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So read that book, and then I was hungry. I was like, okay, I'm ready to get into this.
Yeah.
Right. So still working full time, remodeling houses, back-breaking work. I started when I got home. I would read books. I would look at YouTube videos, and then I remember there was a small stint of time where I was working for your dad and with you a little bit doing some painting. And during the times that I was with you, I would always ask you questions. I would always pick your brain, and at that point I was starting to change my circle of people because I knew where I wanted to get to, and I knew I couldn't hang around the same people I was hanging with to get there because they weren't feeding it.
Right.
They weren't feeding me. I had to get somebody that was doing what I was doing and doing it well.
Yeah. You weren't getting the return on identity.
Ooh. That's, bro. Okay, let's talk about that real quick, and I'll come back to my story. You want to go there?
It's got to be a whole separate video. We
You're
can
right.
talk about it real quick, though. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, okay, so we were in this call. We were watching this weekend with some other entrepreneurs who are business consultants. And this lady, she said that when she flew in to this office and had this like a small conference basically with the other entrepreneurs who are in this space, that she had a huge ROI, and then she called it return on identity, which I thought was brilliant. I don't know where she got that from. Maybe we just coined that. Right?
We need to copyright it.
Yeah, I don't know where she got it from, but it was awesome. I was like, dang, that's such a good way to think about stuff in general. Like the people you hang out with, the time you're putting into whatever it is, education, business, whatever it is. Like, what is your return on identity for that? I think that's a great way to think about it.
Because if you think about it, our most valuable commodity is time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So where you invest your time, who you invest your time with, what you invest your time in, what kind of return, because you're going to get a return.
Yeah, that's right.
But
it
what
could be
kind
a positive or a negative one.
It could be positive or
you
negative.
You might lose money.
Yeah.
You might lose identity from it.
Or you might gain identity. Like if you plant a fig tree, you're going to get figs.
Right.
Everybody don't like, but you might not like it. That might not be, you know what I'm saying? You can't plant this type of seed and expect to get that type of fruit.
That's right.
So
that's kind of what you're saying. You know, the people you hang out with, everybody, most people now have probably heard the saying that the 5 people you hang out with or your 5 closest friends are, I'm saying this terribly. Okay. You are the sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most, basically.
Right.
So there's an interesting video. I saw Steve Train do this in his office. It's been a while back now, but he walked through and he asked like these guys, like, hey, like who are your 5 closest friends? They told him. He's like, all right, how much does this guy make? It's like 100,000. Okay, how much does this guy make? 125. How much does this guy make? 85. How much does this guy make? 100. Okay, cool. So the average is about 100. He's like, what was your salary last year? The guy was like 100.
100.
He was like,
wow.
Like,
that's
holy shit.
Awesome. Right. So look, that's a quick little life hack right there.
Yeah, it
Get
really
your
is.
friends.
It's like, are the people you're hanging out with giving you the return on identity that you want?
Yeah.
That's a good way to think about it.
And that's so, and I'm so glad that she said return on identity.
Yeah.
Right. It's not about money.
Mm-hmm.
It's about So anyway, I can sidetrack
Yeah.
all day, but
Yeah.
So anyway,
We'll get into that in another
yeah.
video.
Okay, yeah, we'll do a deep dive. So started changing my circle, and one of the big concepts that I acquired that I still take with me to this day is you have to work for yourself and you have to pay yourself first. You have to pay yourself first is the way I heard it. So what that meant to me was, and what the books and videos I saw recommended was, if you work 40 hours for someone else, getting job done, and you working about an hour, you making money, you helping them with their business and their progress. Imagine how much more successful you can be if you work 40 hours for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That same energy, that same gumption that you have as a good employee, if you became a good employee of your own business, of your own mind, of your own identity, think about how much. So I didn't have a whole lot of time throughout the day. I didn't have a whole lot of energy throughout the day. So what I did was I made my most profitable hours of my day my lunchtime. So ordinarily, when I'm painting, building a house, whatever the case may be, I would take the shortest lunch possible so I can get right back to it and make my $25, $30 an hour, or whatever the case may be. But I had a mindset change. I had a perspective change, right?
Yeah.
And I had to ripen up a little bit. And I started taking the longest lunch that my boss would let me take.
Yeah.
And during that time, I invested time into learning and in myself, right? So that right there had the potential to make me more money than my hourly wage did, right?
Yeah, that's really good.
So that was the first thing, was like, okay, I really believe that most people have more than enough time to do the most important things in their lives.
I agree.
Right? You have to identify what's the most important thing in your life first. And then prioritize that. With me, I knew trying to get into the real estate game, learning this stuff, being very green, I had to consume as much information as I possibly could. I'm working a full-time job. When I get done, I'm spent. I have no energy. I would try to work or read or make phone calls for about an hour or two, but for the most part, I was done. So in the middle of the day, I found some time for what was most important, right? And I was motivated to do it, so I had more energy to do it. So anyway, so during those times, I would just read about wholesaling. I would read about multifamily. I would read about creative financing. I would read about acquisition of houses. And I would actually do the math on these certain houses, like what does it look like to have a good investment? How do I calculate how much it's going to cost for me to do this? Like what are all these, what are these terms, just knowing the terms also, LTV, ROI, just whatever. A lot of this stuff people just throw out flippantly. And I was like, I don't know what none of this stuff is. I'm like, I'm down with OPP, but you know what I'm saying? OPM, other people's money. That was another one, But getting back to me and how I got into real estate. So mindset changed, understanding that none of this stuff was going to hold me back culturally. And my mindset, what came my mindset change was I had to stop listening to and taking advice from my family and friends that weren't really doing a whole lot. They weren't where I was trying to go, right? That's all I had known my whole life. I want to do something different, want to be something different. So mindset change, education, started investing in my own time, started paying myself first, making it my most profitable time, the time that I spent during lunch and everything. So then I literally, the main things as an entrepreneur in general, and what I did with getting into real estate, and one of the things that you and Mike both did very well that challenged me was y'all just jumped in there and did it. Like, that was so foreign to me. I would almost get anxiety. We would learn something, and you'd be like, all right, well, let's go ahead and do it now, right now. Yeah. And you start dialing. I'm like, but there was really no reason for me not to take action.
I think that's a lot of people. A lot of people who even have the education. The education is a huge part of it.
It is.
But even the people who have the education, then you have to have the work ethic, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't work hard. I'm just saying you have to be willing to take the action, which is how I think I defined work ethic before a couple episodes ago. But I think that's maybe the important thing. Like,
that's good.
Yeah, you got to be willing to actually take the action on the things that you learn.
And a lot of like you said, a lot of people. I was very average. Was decent at a lot of things, and also not willing to take action or finding a reason to procrastinate when there's really no reason, right? Yeah. Being nervous, being afraid, being anxious, like that stuff doesn't really matter. So you and Mike y'all would just go. Y'all would get a concept, understand it, and just so me being laid back and like to have everything out in front of me. Like, okay, what am I doing here? Okay, let me make sure I check. It's kind of like what I do now when I'm getting ready to drive my truck. I got all these checks out. I'm like an old man. I get in there. I got to press this button. I got to adjust this, turn that, make sure my seat is good, my radio, all this stuff. I got this 12-point check inspection before. I'm like, okay, most of that stuff
fly
is
a plane or what?
Yeah, right. Exactly. I'm not. It's not rocket science.
Right.
So, get a concept and then put it into the marketplace. Practice it. Throw it out there.
Yeah.
What's the worst thing that can happen? You fail?
Yeah.
This one lady, when I was a working massage therapist, she owned this particular branch and a few office locations that I worked at. And I was thinking about going into being my own business as a massage therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, what's one piece of advice that you can give me? She said, don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
She said, have you ever failed at anything? I said, yes. She said, and did you survive? I said, yeah. She was like, okay, well, now you know what it feels like to fail. You okay?
Yeah. Go for it.
Yeah, just go for it.
That's actually a big principle at our school. At Action Academy, we want to encourage failure early when the stakes are low, and then you kind of learn this whole thing of like, okay, well, I learned these lessons from this, and I'm not going to be afraid to make mistakes, but I'm also not going to repeat these mistakes. So you wind up learning really valuable lessons when the stakes are low, and then you can carry that into your entrepreneurial life.
That's so good. I love that y'all do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's great. Yeah.
That's really good.
It's like Steve Trang, actually. He had a video a while back I saw. He was talking about he rewards the I guess they're realtors or whatever. Yeah, I might have mentioned it before, but he rewards the people on his team who fail the most every week. So like whoever had the most rejections.
That's it.
Yeah. They get an award. I think it's a great idea.
That is, I get it. If you get it, it makes a lot of sense. Because you're gonna hear no's. Just go ahead and get as many as you can because it's a numbers game at the end of the day.
Yep.
Most things are. So having you guys as mentors and accountability, like pseudo quasi accountability coaches, like, hey D, what'd you do today? Are you doing this? And feeling what it felt like to let my friend down that had invested this time into me, or someone that I told I was going to do something, or just, and at the end of the day, it wasn't even about you guys. It was letting myself down, right? But having that accountability, telling you that, hey, I'm going to do this, and then not doing it was a sting. But then bigger picture, realizing I'm just holding myself up, my life up. So I got started. I started making, I had the math down. I knew numbers, how to evaluate a property, how much equity I needed, how much repair costs were going to be. Like all of that stuff, I knew how to find properties because during this time, real estate was still booming a whole lot. This was like a little bit after 2008. So there was properties, wholesalers were aplenty.
Yeah. Everybody
knew about it. So I went out and just started making phone calls to people that had houses, vacant houses and stuff like that, and just jumped in there and started doing it. And I would get in there and I would start freestyling because I was afraid of the process. I was afraid to talk to people. Their pockets were different than my pockets. And I would just go in there and kind of renege on what I learned and stuff that I studied. And you can't just do your own thing. There are rules of engagement. You can't just freestyle. You have to understand certain principles and how things work and understand the laws and understand all of this stuff and then play by that rule. And once you know that stuff well, you can kind of tweak things and make it your own. But I was afraid to challenge people. Like I would give them a price of $50,000 and they wanted $100,000. Or they want $100,000, so I give them a price of $80,000, knowing I can't make money off of that. But I was afraid of the rejection. It should have been 50. It should have been 50. Yeah. So got in and I struggled for like a year. Didn't make any sales at all in wholesaling. And I was talking to my friend Mike. He was like, "What you doing?" I was like, "I'm overthinking it. Yeah. I'm afraid to be told no. These people cussing me out on the phone. All this stuff."
Yep.
And what I didn't realize was everybody was experiencing this. People don't care. They don't care about your feelings.
Yeah.
It's a numbers game. Make a phone call, here or no. Make another phone call, here or no. You have to find, one of the things you taught me is you have to look at 100 deals to find one deal, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, got into it, and I finally got into a situation where I was like, you know what? I'm going to listen. I'm going to be tough. I'm going to be courageous. And I went in there, got into this deal. Let's see. This lady had a house that was vacant, and she was living out of state. And the trees and stuff were growing up. The grass wasn't cut. So I skip traced the address, found her information, right? I saw that houses in her area was selling for like 150, and so I made her an offer of like, it might have been like $50,000 for a house, which seems disrespectful, but I knew it needed a complete remodel and everything. She was like, and I was like, this is where I'm at, and this is why I'm here. You need a full remodel, all this stuff, yada, yada, yada. And then she was like, and I told her, I was like, we can close in 30 days or less. So she said, okay. And I was like, okay, really? She was like, yeah. I was like, all right, well, all right, have a good day. I hung up the phone, right? didn't get no paperwork, no documents, nothing. I just hung up the phone. I was so excited. So then I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, so then I called back. I'm like, I'm sorry, I dropped the call. I got bad service.
You said bye.
I know. No. But she didn't pick up on it, right? Maybe she did. I don't know. Metro service, So then I called back. I was like, I'm sorry. Let me get your email address so I can email you over the documents. So emailed the documents over, got them signed, had the paperwork, I already had a buyer, so I knew someone that wanted to buy houses in that market for that range, let them know, they were on board with it, got all the paperwork, sent it to my real estate attorney, and it was great. So in about 2 weeks' time, did all the paperwork and stuff like that. We closed on it, got there, everybody signed the paperwork. The seller got their check, the buyer got his property, and I got my check. And oh my gosh, it felt so good. I felt like I really got paid what I was worth, because I facilitated the whole deal. I communicated, and that's what I started off talking about was communication, showing myself by communication, or using my mind, also my intellectual skills. And I was able to facilitate this, and I felt like I got paid what I was worth. Right. And I was like, okay, I feel like I'm officially in the real estate game. Kind of. Yeah. Right.
How much was that first check for?
That first one was for $10,000.
Yeah.
Right.
That's good.
Yeah. So then my first rental property was a similar situation. It was $15,000 for my first one. Yeah. What it was. Yeah. So my first rental property was actually a situation where a house was going. There was a tired landlord, a tired homeowner is what it was. And I specialize in creative financing and just creative deals. As a real estate investor, you can figure out a way to make stuff work within the confines of the laws. And as long as you can get an agreement with a seller or a buyer, then you can take it to the closing table, right? Negotiate some terms. So what happened with this one was this lady wanted to move up to West Virginia to be with her family. She didn't have any more family down here in South Georgia, and she still had a mortgage on her house, right? And she would come in I was working at your store, and in the mobile home parts store, and she would come in all the time buying parts, buying trim, and doing. I was like, hey, so how you doing? What's going on? Oh, I'm here. These kids tearing up my property and everything. I'm like, you wouldn't be like, would you want to sell that? She's like, I would love to sell it. I'm like, okay, so what's going on? I'm trying to move all this stuff. I just need some money to move. You can keep the mortgage, all this stuff like that, right? So I was like, okay, well, let's do this. I'll pay for your move and give you a little bit more money to have in your pocket. I'll take over your debt, and you can do what you want to do. That's pretty much it. There you go. Yeah. Right? So we worked out a deal like that. And I got her out of there, got her money, sent her down the road. She actually didn't end up moving to West Virginia. She moved into one of your mobile home parks. And then I took that property that I now had the deed to, right? I had the deed to. I'm not getting into all the details right now. That'd be for another video. But I had the deed, so I had an equitable interest in the property. I had the deed, so I can do whatever I want. I can sell it. I can rent it out. I can whatever I want to do with it, right? I was responsible for the property, and I just rented it to someone else in a rent-to-own type of situation, right? So I got a down payment from them. They're making monthly payments, and that's pretty much it. So that was my first rental property, and I didn't come out of pocket for anything.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how did you get the money to give to her for her to move?
So I knew some people that wanted to buy something, so I found something. So that property was suitable for them. So they had already given me some like a down payment type of thing. Yeah. So I just used some of that down payment to give to the lady to get her down the road. Yeah. And then after that, we just wrote up an agreement, and I spoke with the mortgage company, right, to let them know, to give me access to pay that, to continue paying on that mortgage, right. And I spoke with the insurance company, all that stuff like that, because what I didn't want to happen was for the mortgage company to call the loan due. Right. So I was upfront with them. That's one thing I learned also is I'm not, as a wholesaler, as a real estate investor, I'm not afraid to contact and call all the parties that's involved with the situation. A lot of people try to do stuff on the radar. They try to, you know, it's like, just tell the truth, be transparent, be open with what you're doing. And in the process, I've educated a lot of real estate agents, a lot of lenders, insurance companies, real estate attorneys. A lot of them don't really know the laws and how things work. So I would have to educate them on certain policies and terms. And they're like, oh yeah, I see. Yeah, that is true. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead and send the paperwork, So, and that was pretty much how I got my first rental property. So I love doing deals like that. And that was, where I don't have to put any money out and I get an infinite return, So,
That's good.
So that's pretty much how I got started in so wholesaling and acquiring my first rental property. So
yeah, that's awesome. How did you, or why did you come and work for us in Jessup?
So it was during that time where I wanted to make a change. I got tired of working for slow money, working with my hands, having to be at a job, working a 9 to 5. I remember this one thing that I heard that changed my life. They asked this entrepreneur, they said, what's the craziest thing you've ever done for money? And he said, working 9 to 5.
That's real good right there.
Wow, changed my life. I was like, you know what? I need some passive income. So I wanted to learn real estate, and you were doing it. So I was at a place in my life which wasn't ideal, but I was like, I'm gonna do what it takes to learn this.
Yeah.
So I was like, I want to come and work for you, be a landlord, which I was terrible at first, right? We can talk about that later.
That's why you had to fire everybody for 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, so many stories of being a landlord. If I want to hear about some of these landlord stories, and we might even have to put up a post about, and I'm sure people do this, but like just throwing in your crazy landlord experiences, right? Just some of the stuff you see as a landlord. If we could have took a camera and recorded just a day in the life,
I know
we could be rich right now.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to inundate myself in that world. Yeah. So I was like, let me come work hands-on as a landlord and also study and ask questions at the same time. That's why I came up there to move to work with you,
Yeah, that was cool. I think that was an important thing. And it's an important thing about, when people come, or when you talk about being, an employee versus an entrepreneur. I think most people need to have some kind of business that they do that's theirs, or at least an investment. They have to have some kind of investment where they can make passive income. But I think it is valuable for people to become an employee when it benefits them in the long run.
That's good.
When they build skills that they can use down the road. So I thought it was a good thing for you to come learn the game that I was playing at the time, and then be able to take that and use that for yourself down the road. And you came in and told me the first thing, like, hey, I'm only going to be here for probably a year or so. I just want to learn this, but it'll be beneficial to you because I'll be a dependable, good employee while I'm here. And then, I'll learn, while I'm doing it too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. I was really appreciative of that time, so
it was good.
Yeah. Cool, man. All right. Well, that's my story. I know we were kind of all over the place with it, but I appreciate you guys for rocking with us on this episode. Follow us, like us, write to us. We'll comment back. We're looking forward to sharing more stories, more insights, and all that good stuff. You got anything, man?
That's it.
All right, man. Well, this is the Defied Life Podcast. That's our outro music as it's going out. Not yet. We need something, but anyway.
All right.